The rainforest we bought in the Ecuadorian Amazon is a beautiful and mysterious place, full of surprises, which is why in this video today, I want to explore the land we are trying to protect and rewild. And to give all this some structure, I'll be taking you from the most degraded areas to the wildest and most pristine ones, where we've made some pretty exciting discoveries. And as we go along, we'll try to start mapping which trees we want to climb, where we want to leave camera traps, and of course showing you some of the amazing wildlife that we find. Now, let's start with the center point of our land, which is of course our base.
So this here is the only place in the land that is currently inhabited. And it's essentially the house from the previous owner that was in relatively good condition. So Freddy fixed it up and we've been using it as a base.
The house is simple but comfortable enough, and it has space for about 8 people, which is great for this planning stage of the project, but it'll also be quite useful in the future as we develop the project further. For me, the most amazing thing is all the wildlife we can see from up here. On a daily basis, you can see literally hundreds of birds, ranging from the oropendolas that wake us up in the morning with their incredible song, all the way to woodpeckers, white-throated toucans, or even laughing falcons. Oh, and sometimes, of course, we had the chance to greet some special visitors. All in all, regardless of the shape or size of the animals, it's a great reminder of what we are trying to protect here.
And then next on the human infrastructure list, we have the 3 roads that go through our property, as well as the electrical cables that provide power to the families that live down there.
The roads crisscross our lands. One of them is actually a community path, which needs to be maintained, but it seems we can rewild the 2 others, which is great. Then, a short walk down the community road, we get to some more houses that belong to the families which moved to the city a few years ago. The first house in this area is relatively big and is made of good wood, and despite the termites, it is actually in a decent condition.
So the house back there, it might be salvageable, and we might try to use it for something like tourism or volunteers, we're not sure. But yeah, it's still standing, so maybe we can give it some use. And then there's a third house here.
It looks like the jungle has taken this one back already.
I imagine how was the view, you know?
So this one's a bit too far gone, no, Freddy?
Yeah, it's not repairable. No fixing.
No fixing this one.
No.
We'll probably try to salvage some materials, but otherwise this house will be returned to the jungle. And the forest growing around these houses is already quite nice. It is a bit more humid than the other areas because of its proximity to a lovely clear water creek. And this means that there is an abundance of amphibians, such as this mushroom-tongued salamander we found in the leaf litter, or the iconic Ecuadorian poison dart frog, which we found on the leaves.
And then we have house number 4 here. It's also pretty much gone. Termites have gotten into pretty much all of the wood. We're gonna apply the same principle. Get rid of the tin roof so it's not in the way and return everything else to the jungle.
Together, the roads, the houses, and the margins account for 2.1% of the land, which is quite reasonable.
And then we have these grasses, which are essentially cow pastures. And in my eyes, this is the worst bit of degradation in our land. I mean, to come in and cut the mature rainforest and replace it with non-native grasses to then graze cows on them is the stuff of nightmares when it comes to the deforestation of the rainforest. And in our case, it comes complete with a nice set of fences with a lot of barbed wire in between. So if the forest now grows, this might get in the way for people and for animals. So we're probably going to have to get rid of that.
The open areas made searching for birds easier, but it was also unbearable to be walking around in the baking sun instead of the deep shade of the jungle canopy. And the fences will be a bit of a headache as well, as we'll have to get rid of a few kilometers in total and either sell it or dispose of it.
And then we have the monoculture cacao plantations, and they're a bit better than the degraded cow pasture that you saw just now, but they're still a far cry from the mature rainforest that you can see in the back there. That's what all of this used to be, because the mature rainforest offers a lot more. It offers shelter for biodiversity and habitat for all kinds of wildlife.
In total, the cacao plantations and the grasses occupy 11.8% of the land. And while we've enjoyed the clear view of the birds and the unlimited supply of fresh cacao, we do want all of this to become mature rainforest once more. We checked out each area with the drone and on foot to get some proper on-the-ground data.
It's just a dense wall of grass and nothing else. So we dug up the root of this grass to be able to ID it better, hopefully. So we'll take some pictures of the leaves and of the roots.
We are just logging some observations as we walk the land. The idea is that as we do these trails, we can take photos and write things down about any features we see. And now just noting that here's the creek that separates the two cacao plantations.
And what's the app that you're using?
So this is EpiCollect. It's a nice and simple free app that we've been using for this. And then hopefully this will all be nicely displayed on a map that we can keep checking back.
Right now, we are still developing the final recovery plan, but for the most part, we are happy to just rely on natural regeneration. You see, the plantations here used to be maintained, so there was no competition for the cacao, and there would have been cows grazing on the grass. But now all of that has stopped, and the jungle is just itching to take over again. We're expecting that the grass will grow too tall, dry up, and eventually wilt, creating an opportunity for some trees to settle.
Once they have opportunity, imagine if there's an opportunity here. If you come back in 1 year, this one probably will be like 3 meters high.
Once these pioneer tree species settle in, they will start outcompeting the grasses and the cacao trees, and eventually we should end up with something like this. This area used to be a cacao plantation a few decades ago, and now it's a proper rainforest again. We'll check in on all of this and the full action plan in a few months, in the last episode of this series. So, if you remember, keep an eye out on your account, and if you're just a viewer here on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to stay up to date. And now, it's time for us to start exploring the proper wild areas of our lands, starting with the forests to the south. We're not undertaking these small one-day expeditions simply because we fancy a day out in the jungle. Don't get me wrong, it is of course a ton of fun, but our purpose here is to gather a baseline of the health of the natural ecosystem, which is why, as we go along, we are marking relevant features and species on our map and deploying our camera traps to get a rough picture of the state of the wildlife populations. And for this work, we'll have Adriana and Tiago, our biologists, Ollie, our go-to herb man, Julia to help with the filming, Freddy, who of course manages this project, and crucially also Jaime.
So we're heading for the first proper trek in the jungle, and today we have Jaime, who is our neighbor, as our guides to show us this trail properly.
For the first stage of this work, we will be tracing the peninsulas of our lands near the river, because even though these areas are in great condition, they used to be farmed.
So Jaime was just saying that 30 years ago this used to be a coffee plantation here. So this is before the previous owner, so 2 owners ago. And as you can see, it has recovered quite nicely. This is a proper forest. So hopefully our degraded areas, our cacao plantations and so on, will look like this in 30 years time. I think this is the biggest and most imposing buttress that we have here, and oh, it's big if it fills the frame, and you can see what an amazing tree. And the roots, they spread like this because the soil is so thin, so they spread quite widely instead of going down, because you know the Amazon has almost no soil.
The way you can think about it is essentially that the nutrients are constantly in circulation. The plants and the animals here absorb and recycle the nutrients so fast that almost nothing stays in the actual soil. It is quite poor, and this forces the trees to spread their roots out instead of growing deeper.
Monkeys. So what we're trying to do with this camera track, so we just saw some
monkeys, which we believe to be nocturnal monkeys, jumping across the branches, and we weren't able to actually get a closer look and to film them. So we're leaving this camera trap here, and we'll try to come back, because the guys, they believe that they live in that hole in that tree right there. So hopefully we'll be able to spot them when we're not here making all this noise. So it looks like we might have gotten lucky here, and we found some chestnut-fronted macaws on a really tall branch up there, and Yulia here is trying to film them properly. That was super cool to see. We really got to hang out with those macaws for a little bit, and yeah, just seeing them play on the branch. It's actually quite hard to see birds from within the forest, which is why we're lucky to still have those open areas, if you will. But once the forest regenerates, we're going to have to be better at finding birds, and we're going to have to see them more like this. So, this is generally what happens in the Amazon. You're walking about, enjoying the forest, and then a massive downpour comes around, waters all the plants. It's nice and enjoyable to be in the rain. I'm just usually stressed because of the camera gear. But yeah, it's what keeps these forests going. And it's nice to be here, you know, in the middle of one of these big downpours. It really feels like the rainforest. What an amazing place to be protected, even if it drenches you from time to time. Everybody's got different tactics for the rain, Ali. Yeah. Staying classy. You are British after all, representing with the umbrella. So now after the rain we get to see a pretty sad sight. So this whole area behind that's completely open, it was cut not too long ago, and yeah, you can really see with how much brighter it is and how few trees are standing there. And this is one of those that we saw from the drone, right, Tiago?
Yeah, you can see quite well.
Yeah.
So we just weren't quite sure what it looked like.
So this one here we have it mapped clearly.
Yeah.
So we knew about it, but it's interesting to see it. And of course, it's one of those that we hope will recover fast once we let it grow back. Once the rain arrives, the wildlife hides for a while, but in further explorations on this peninsula, we found a lot more wildlife, including some locations where these animals go every single day, such as this vitally important clay lake. But I'll reserve that for the 4th episode in this series, where we take on the task of fully mapping the wildlife that lives here, including the results from all our camera traps. Now, I want to move on to the exploration of the next peninsula, which is wilder and in even better condition. And based on the shape, I decided to call it the Sock Peninsula. You think people should vote on the name of the peninsula?
I do think people should vote on the name of the peninsula.
You don't think people are gonna side with me and choose to call it Sock instead of Tail?
I'm on the Sock team as well.
You're on the Sock team?
I think there's going to be something
there's
better than all
dilemma.
of this. I think there's a lot more potential.
Peninsula McPeninsula face.
I think we can get more creative than just the old stinky sock.
I think the Sock name is cemented in our brains by now, but we're always open to new ideas. So if you have a good one, drop it in the comments and we might actually take it on. Right at the start of this trek, we were lucky to be able to see a Spix's guan, which is a beautiful bird which we had only glimpsed on a distant branch the day before. Now, even though this area is in better condition, it was also farmed at one point. Yeah, they're really tall cacao trees.
Really tall cacao trees.
With the cacao growing straight out of the tree.
All the fruits that they're carrying, monkeys will be eating, you know. So, like a scooter monkey, maybe capuchin or titi monkey, the one we saw.
The cacao plantations here have been abandoned at least since 2006, when most families which lived near the river moved up towards the new community road. Both of these peninsulas were crisscrossed by beautiful little creeks, and parts of it are certainly low enough to flood during heavy rainfall events. This place felt like a wonderful, playful maze of plants and water, with the abundant variety of beautiful fungi giving it an enchanted forest look.
Wait, sorry, caterpillar?
I think so, I don't know. Caterpillar.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It's very new. Maybe in one more week.
Wow.
It's, you know,
So
like
it's trying to walk its way closer to the water.
looking for the nutrients on the ground and support.
These walking palms are super interesting, and they immediately make me think that they're the real-life version of ants, a tropical treebeard, if you will. And the wannabe filmmaker in me really wished to make a time-lapse over a few months, but maybe that's a project for the future, when we're not as busy figuring out these projects.
Is that like a tactic of being the last one in the middle?
Adriana, how do you see that?
Pretty deadly fedulence right there. Yeah, you can never be too careful walking here. Even our very experienced Freddy and Jaime walk right over it. But our biologist here keeping an eye out for the snakes, doing security services. So yeah, statistically, that is the snake with the most snake bites within its range. So might not be the deadliest if you do get bit, but it is the one that bites the most and kills the most within its range. And its range is the Amazon rainforest, so a respectable snake.
Later on, we actually found ayahuasca in this peninsula, which is the vine that is essential for the making of the famous ritual tea that is so important for shamanic culture and the people of the Amazon. And we were also able to track down some very elusive wildlife. But for this expedition, we were starting to run a bit low on time.
And we've only done this, and we're hoping to do all of this before it gets dark today. So we gotta
What's time?
pick up the pace a little bit. So it's 3:30. So
Okay.
But thankfully, there is a shortcut.
So this here is the Tiputini River, and I couldn't imagine a nicer southern border for our land.
This river is the only barrier between us and the Yasuni National Park, and as you can see, it meanders beautifully, creating these nice long curves and peninsulas in our land. It wiggles about so much that we actually have almost 5 kilometers of this river in our land alone. It takes an hour to float down all the way with the currents, and I think this is a particularly important part of what we are protecting here. This is where aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems meet, with all sorts of wildlife thriving here, ranging from these beautiful golden mantle tamarins to golden teagles, and all the way to strange birds like the prehistoric looking huatzin or the anhinga. Floating down this river was an experience that truly immersed us in the jungle, especially when it started pouring down in classic Amazon fashion once more. There is so much wonderful and healthy forest right next to the river, and it stands so tall and impressive above the water. But above all, it was wonderful to see how much we are protecting with this relatively small investment. And don't get me wrong, $185,000 is of course not a small amount of money. I mean, I certainly cannot imagine personally having all that money and being able to do something like this. But together with you, our Mossy Earth members, we've managed to do it with just a couple of months of membership money, which is simply incredible. So if you're not yet a member, but you would like to be a part of this and other projects that we do, then please consider joining at mossy.earth.
The membership starts at around $6, £5, similar amount in euros. And we try to make it cheap because we want as many people as possible to participate. That's really important for us. And when you put it all together, we can do really big stuff. It's rewilding by the people, normal people like you and me, for the people that live here, so that this forest can stand for a really long time.
And that is why now it's time to show you the core, the wild heart of what we are protecting, the mature part of our rainforest.
what's really amazing to see is that there are still trees like this one left. Trees that are probably hundreds of years old, that stand proud and tall in the jungle, covered in lianas, covered in all sorts of different epiphytes. It's just full of life. It's an ecosystem of its own.
It is in this area that we found all the tallest and oldest trees in our land, including some really amazing ones, such as this emergent near the cacao plantation, or this one further north near the border of the land.
So this tree here is actually a cedar. Locally here it's known as a chuncho, and Freddy tells me that it is the second best tree to make dugout canoes. That essentially a tree like this one, a huge old tree like this, could be cut and then they would make a canoe for a whole family. You could put 15 people, their dogs, and everything they wanted to carry inside. But unfortunately for us, it is also a tree that is very desirable for furniture, for bed making, for all sorts of other uses. It's a very desirable wood. So it's really important for us to protect. It's really special, first, actually, that we still have some of these trees on our land. And second, it's really important for us to protect them, to ensure that nobody's coming in and illegally logging these.
And along with an older forest comes something quite special.
Watch this. This is incredible. Look at the feast, at the boom of life happening in this tree over here. It's just completely covered in fungi, and it's one of the things we're looking for in the mature forests. And in this area here, yeah, we just have a lot more deadwood than we have down near the river where the forests have been cut less time ago. We have a lot less of this here.
This part of the forest is also home to a few creeks, so we set out to walk one of them to see what we could find.
Sorry, the lady wanted to dig this up?
Yes, without any permission, illegally, you know. So bringing here a big machines and dig out and destroying the forest.
Looking for gold.
That was I was very, very worried about that, you know, I was very sad. And then, you know, can you imagine opening this? They will dig maybe 30 meters wide here. Not only this little creek. They will dig like 20, 30 meters wide. And then they never close. Once they get the gold, they will go away. Never come back.
Yeah, and leave a mess behind.
Yes, we are lucky.
This was one of the reasons we felt a certain degree of urgency to buy this land. Because imagining this beautiful place turned into a horrible mud pit makes me really sad.
You're looking for gold, Freddy.
Yes.
Maybe not. Don't find it. Maybe, you know, it's good.
Maybe not. I don't want to tell people it's this.
No gold here.
No gold.
Just rocks and mud.
Just mud
And a lot of snakes. This
Yes.
is what we have to tell them.
Yeah.
And just as we said that, we of course stumbled upon another fer de lance. That's pretty poisonous snake, along with some lovely amphibians, some crabs, and even some fish.
So now we've reached a river that actually runs through our property a little bit, but it only sort of meanders in and then it goes out into the other areas that are adjacent to our property. But it's really cool and it's a lot bigger than I thought.
This was once more a beautiful stretch of riparian habitats, completely untouched, with all sorts of different plants taking advantage of the extra water and humidity. And once again, it was really refreshing to bathe here and contemplate this place. But when you stay for too long, the jungle starts taking you in.
So this is Tiago's bag, and and this is what happens
That's termites.
when you leave the bag in the wrong place in the jungle.
You know, later, if you live maybe for one day, tomorrow you can see a termite nest over in Torralen.
Oh no,
Yes.
I really like my bag.
So I hope you've enjoyed this tour of the land, and if you'd like to support this project and all our other projects, then please remember that the best way to do so is by becoming a Mossy Earth member, and you can do so at mossy.earth. The link will be in the description and also in a pinned comment down below. And I decided to finish the tour here next to this amazing tall sandy tree
because in the next video we're going to climb it. We're going to climb this one and many others to show you what life is like up there. Until next time. Cheers!